3 spine-chilling close encounter horror stories. Unexplained terror exposed in haunted encounters. It was another uneventful Tuesday night at the diner, but Sarah never knew how quickly that would change. The hiss of the fryer mixed with the clatter of dishes, the voices of locals dying down, and laughter lingering like a ghost in the air. The closing time bell chimed, signaling the end of another long shift. She wiped down the counter, the cool metal sending shivers through her tired hands. But as the last customer left, an eerie silence enveloped the diner. It crept in, chilling the very marrow of her bones. Her phone buzzed suddenly, the unknown number flashing vividly against her palm. A knot tightened in her stomach. "Hello?" The line crackled, filled with thick, unsettling silence. Goosebumps formed as she felt an unwelcome shiver race down her spine. Just a prank, she assured herself, but the unease lingered, gnawing at her mind like a lost child crying in the night. Days rolled on, each one dragging more dread than the last. Candles flickered 2 nights in a row. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision that seemed to whisper secrets. Just the wind, she told herself. But who was she trying to convince? One stormy evening, Mark dashed into her room, terror painting his pale face. "Mom, I saw something outside." He was breathless, eyes wide, the very picture of innocent fear. She dismissed it, shaking her head. It was just a figment of his childlike imagination, right? But then, neighbors began murmuring about a man 2 doors down, the nice one who always waved at them, being involved in secrets hidden in plain sight, a trail of missing children, bodies buried beneath layers of suburban peace. Panic clawed at her heart. She dove into research, each crescent of truth tightening a noose around her already frail sanity. Yet when she approached the local authorities, they brushed her off, an overprotective mother, they said. Power flickered again, and just like that, chaos unfurled. Thunder howled, wind screamed, and the world outside fell dark. In the breathless silence that ensued, Sarah felt something lurking. Then soft scratching at her front door sent icy fingers of fright crawling across her skin. Heart racing, she dragged Mark and Lily close, fear wrapping around them like a vice. "Stay quiet," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. They huddled together, a fragile shield against the unknown. Each creak of floorboards echoed malevolently, mingling with the soft murmurs of what felt like long-hidden evils creeping near. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The door creaked forward, teeth rattling, ready to unveil fears she could barely comprehend. The air grew thick, the shadows stretching deeper than her nightmares had ever dared. She gripped her children tighter, vulnerability burgeoning within her. Familiar faces can hide unfathomable evil, and Sarah was about to find out just how close the danger really was. With a surge of determination, she took a step toward the door, her heart pounding as the chilling realization gripped her what waited beyond could be the very monster she always feared. The door groaned open, revealing a dark silhouette against the night. Sarah squinted, trying to pierce the shadows, her breath caught in her throat like a stone. Mark clutched her arm, fingers digging into her skin, while Lily nestled against her side, oblivious to the terror that wrapped around them. "Who is there?" Sarah's voice trembled, the question almost lost in the howling wind. No answer came, just an unsettling stillness, like the moment before a storm breaks. Instinct screamed at her to shut the door, but her feet felt frozen, cemented to the ground. An ominous dread pricked at her consciousness. If she closed it now, would she be sealing her family's fate against whatever lurked outside? Then, from the shadows emerged a figure, arms dangling, the face hidden beneath the hood of a tattered coat. A chill struck her spine as recognition crashed over her. This was not just anyone standing there. It was the neighbor, the one everyone surrounded with whispers, a thin veil of normalcy attempting to mask twisted truths. "Sarah," he drawled, his voice oily, filling the air with a suffocating malice. "What do you want?" Sarah's heart raced, panic igniting every muscle in her body. "Just wanted to say hi," he replied, a disconcerting grin breaking through the darkness. It was too wide, too sincere, like a sickening twist of fate. She considered slamming the door, shoving her children behind her, but curiosity and fear waged war in her mind. "The police said you were involved in something?" she managed, her words faltering under the weight of the truth. He tilted his head, that grin growing unsettlingly wider. "Involved? Involved in uncovering what was always right in front of you." Instinctively, her grip on her children tightened as he stepped closer, crossing the threshold with an air of entitlement. The smell hit her first, a blend of decay and something sweeter, like rotting fruit, swimming in the air. "You should be careful who you trust, Sarah," he whispered, his breath a ghost against her skin. "I can help you see what lies beneath." With every word, her heart thudded louder in her chest. She took a small step back, dragging her children with her. "You need to leave." But he chuckled softly, a sound devoid of humor. "But you've already invited me in." Suddenly, from the depths of her home, a strange sound echoed, a faint, rhythmic thumping. It was coming from the basement. Sarah's stomach dropped, ice washing over her as she recalled rumors of hidden rooms, whispered chants of bones buried beneath whispering walls. "Just a little something I left for you," he said, that dreadful grin stretching further. Marcus' eyes widened. "Mom, what is happening?" She did her best to keep her voice steady. "It's okay, baby. Just stay close." But the words felt hollow, devoid of reassurance. Then, without a warning, he lunged forward. It all happened in an instant. Sarah barely had time to react. The door whipped open wider, and shadows streamed in like hungry tendrils, coercing her to portal depths of the unknown. "And oh!" she screamed. But the hidden truth was ready to unveil itself. Fast as lightning, she turned to run. Her instincts kicked in, desperation surging within her. In that chaos, every balance shifted, terror gripping her as she felt the darkness clawing at her back. As she sprinted toward the kitchen, her mind raced. Was her neighbor the predator, or just a pawn in a much darker game? Just as she reached the kitchen door, the lights flickered again, plunging her into a myriad of shadows. For a brief moment, everything fell silent. Then a whispered voice in the dark sent icy dread racing through her veins. "I know what you've been hiding." What had she been hiding? What secrets lurked within her own walls? And just then, the silence shattered into a cacophony of echoing voices from the basement, as something or someone began to rise. The impending nightmare had just begun, and Sarah's next decision could determine whether it was her end or just the start of something worse. Would she risk it all to uncover the hidden truth? The thumping intensified, echoing through the floor like a heartbeat, pulsing against the walls of her home. Each thud felt like a countdown, sending vibrations up Sarah's spine as she clasped Mark's hand tighter, desperately trying to maintain control. "Mom?" Lily whispered, her small voice trembling. The innocence in her question cut deeper than any blade. Sarah hissed, darting glances back toward the door as she held her children close. The figure was still there, looming in the doorway, blocking any chance of escape or safety. The last remnants of light flickered behind him, casting monstrous shadows that danced along the walls. "Do you hear it?" the neighbor asked, a mocking lilt to his voice. "It wants out. So much it wants to be free." He took another deliberate step forward, and the stench grew stronger, a fetid wave that suffocated her. "Stay back," she shouted, the words tasting like metal on her tongue. She took a step backward, forcing her children behind her, the kitchen's cool tiles beneath her feet grounding her momentarily. But then the brightness from the living room went black. The darkness was absolute, swallowing everything, almost alive in its embrace. Panic clawed its way into her throat, and she made her decision. "Go. Run to the back door." Mark hesitated, his eyes darting from her to the shadowy figure. But Sarah's urgency finally pierced through his hesitation. She shoved him gently, forcing him and Lily toward the rear of the house. But the neighbor wasn't finished. In one smooth motion he lunged forward, blocking their path. Not yet. Not until you see the truth. No, please, Sarah begged, gripping the counter, her heart racing like a trapped animal. As they collided with the icy dread of looming darkness, she felt a strange energy crackle through the air. Something stirred beneath her feet, a sensation vibrating through the floorboards. It was almost like the house itself was alive. I can show you, the man continued, his voice a haunting melody that twisted through her mind. I promise you'll understand. The walls seemed to tremble, leaning in closer, as if holding secrets buried for years. Mom! Mark shouted, tugging at her, pulling her toward the kitchen door. She felt each desperate tug of her son, and a part of her yearned to listen. But something else, darker and more powerful, thrummed in her veins. A low growl resonated from below, parting the chaos in her mind. She glanced toward the basement door, almost instinctually drawn to it. The sounds were getting louder, more insistent. In that moment her choice crystallized. No, I won't let you show us anything, she cried, her voice finding strength. She shoved the neighbor back, surprising him with a force she didn't know she possessed. A thunderous roar erupted from the basement, rattling the remnants of picture frames on the walls as a cold wind gusted around them. Shadows morphed, curling and twisting in the corners, calling on her deepest fears. With a fierce shove, she guided her children toward the back door. They barely reached it when the neighbor lunged again, but she was already turning the knob, the fresh night air beckoning, promising freedom from this hellish encounter. Just as they burst through and into the cool embrace of the outside world, Sarah turned to see the basement door swinging wide, the darkness spilling forth like smoke, ready to consume everything. What did we just unleash? She whispered, fear wrapping around her heart like barbed wire. And then, in that chilling moment of clarity, Sarah knew that whatever haunted her home was more than just her neighbor. It was an entity that thrived in the whispers of the night. I don't want to go back in, Mark whimpered. But the question loomed larger than ever. Could they escape the truth? Or was it already too late? With her resolve hardening, Sarah faced the shadows, realizing this nightmare was only just beginning. We have to go back. The true horror lay not in what awaited in the basement, but in what awaited her when they went inside. What would they discover when they returned to confront the darkness? The air outside was eerily still, void of the usual comfort found under the stars. It felt wrong, unnatural, as though the world had paused to hold its breath. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, a wild drum urging her to flee, to run far away from that house. But she could not abandon her children. They were her lifeline in this madness. Mom, please, Mark whimpered again, pulling at her arm as his small frame trembled. I know, sweetie, but listen to me, we need to understand what is happening, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Lily was quiet, her big eyes reflecting the terror that paralyzed her mother. Behind them, the house loomed ominously, dark windows like hollow eyes watching their every move. The back door was just a few steps away, leading to the overgrown backyard, a sliver of escape shrouded in shadows. Suddenly, a distant howl erupted from within the house, a guttural sound that seemed to stretch beyond reality, reverberating through the yard, pulling at Sarah's instincts. Mom? Mark stepped back, his feet dragging. I don't want to go back. Her fingers grazed the doorknob, and she hesitated again, the cold metal sending a shiver through her. Then, almost imperceptibly, something shifted in the air. The shadows gathered, swirling unevenly, threading darkness like tendrils wrapping around her, beckoning her back inside. The truth is in there. The neighbor's voice slithered from the threshold. You only need to step across the line. No, she screamed, turning to face her children. Her protective instinct flared, fueled by a surge of primal fear. We can't let it in. We can't let it take us. Marcus' eyes darted between her and the darkened doorway, panic coloring his features. But, It's already out. It's out, Mom. Before she could respond, the howl erupted again, this time closer, reverberating off the walls of the house, mingling with the wind. The ground beneath her seemed to tremble, shaking loose gravel and dirt. It felt like the very earth was alive, angry and restless. "Run!" she yelled, visibility slipping away as the shadows thickened, morphing into undefined shapes. With her children still near, she propelled herself forward, heading for the safety of the trees. But as they turned, the darkness of the open door loomed ever larger. Sarah pushed her kids on, but the shadows shifted again, this time swirling like smoke, building layers upon layers that sparkled with a sinister allure. "Mom!" Lily screamed, gripped by an unseen force, her feet rooting into the ground. "No! Lily, come on!" Panic flooded Sarah's veins. She tugged her daughter forward, but something was tugging back, something powerful, vengeful. Then a piercing scream erupted from the house, the sound of a life spilling into the night, raw and unyielding. The noise cracked through the thick heaviness of the air, stealing Sarah's breath and casting an all-consuming dread over them. "Mom, please!" Mark pulled at her, his voice a desperate plea that ignited her protective instincts. Sarah had to fight. With every big effort, she wrenched Lily from the invisible grasp. They stumbled backward, collapsing together into the underbrush. Adrenaline roared louder than any fear. But the open door, dark and gaping, beckoned with the whispers of the past. Something was figmenting behind them. They felt it, alive and hungry, breathing down their necks in a chorus of disdain. "Get up!" Sarah shouted, urging her children to their feet again. They mustered what courage they could and ran toward the tree-line. But behind them, the darkness boiled, a mass of shadows forming itself into something distinct, something that pulsed with their horror. In that moment, she realized running was not the answer. "Mark! Lily!" She turned to face the thing now beckoning from the shadows, determination coursing through her veins. "We need to confront it." Her children gaped in silent disbelief. Whatever haunted that house would not simply fade away. It was time to pull the truth from the darkness, or be consumed by it. As she squared her shoulders, feeling the rush of strength surge within, she stepped into the glimmering shadows, her heart pounding a relentless rhythm of defiance. And just as the shadows grasped her, a voice whispered from the darkness, "Welcome home." What awaited her inside the abyss? Would she uncover the truth of the horrors that thrived in the heart of her home, or would it claim her soul forever? The moment Sarah stepped into the darkness, the chill zipped through her, wrapping around her like icy fingers. She closed her eyes tightly, trying to block out the terrifying whispers that danced in her ears. "Mom!" Mark's voice broke through the haze. It clamored through the shadows, pulling her back for a fleeting moment. "No!" The word escaped her lips with a fervor that startled her. "Stay close. Don't leave my side." But the shadows seemed to thrum with life, eager to pull her deeper into their cold embrace. Every step felt like walking through molasses. The air grew thick, almost suffocating, each breath a struggle as she fought against the palpable dread pressing against her chest. The house loomed larger behind her, its twisted architecture morphing into grotesque shapes, forms that shrieked of memories buried in despair and hopelessness. Suddenly, the darkness shifted, revealing a twisted passageway that led deeper into the home's abode. Images flashed like broken glass across her mind's screams, sorrow, desperation clawing upward from the depths. She gritted her teeth, acknowledging the horror that awaited her as fear snaked down her spine. "Mark! Lily!" The names tore from her throat. The shadows seemed to pulsate, swirling around her in response, hissing as they entwined around her children. Despite the horrific tension, she remained their anchor, her hands stretching toward them, fingers outstretched, grounding them. They stumbled forward, caught in her fierce intensity. "Look!" Lily cried, her voice rising above the ominous hum. "The walls, they're moving." The walls pulsed around them, vibrating with an eerie energy, as if the house itself breathed. Shadows flickered against the unfamiliar surfaces, revealing fleeting glimpses of figures, disembodied faces twisted in eternal agony. So many lost souls, trapped within the very fabric of the house. What are those? Mark breathed in a fearful whisper, eyes wide with astonishment. I don't know, but we can't give in to fear. Sarah felt their growing apprehension, wanting to shield them from the chaos that engulfed them. We need to keep moving to find a way out. A cold wind howled through the hallway, sending a shiver down her spine. It sliced through the air like a knife, carrying with it a cacophony of voices, echoing their pain. Each whisper melded into another, forming a chorus of torment that pressed down on her, smothering hope. Mom, that sound. Lily trembled beside her. It's like they're warning us. But a part of Sarah listened, transfixed by the haunting symphony that seemed to speak directly to her heart. We need to know what happened here. We need to understand. They pressed forward, guided by the dim glow of a flickering light ahead. Each cautious step resonated loudly against the silence, bouncing off the walls and into the void, as if they annoyed the shadows, now more restless than ever. Suddenly, out of the darkness, a figure emerged, a man, gaunt and pale, with eyes that appeared sunken into his ashen face. He stood at the end of the hallway, one bony finger raised, beckoning them closer. Come to me, he rasped, voice like gravel scraping against stone. Mark shrank behind Sarah, while Lily instinctively clutched her brother. Mom? Mark whimpered, fear grating his voice. Stay behind me, Sarah commanded, heart racing faster than ever. She took a step toward the figure, determination flooding her veins. What do you want? His hollow gaze fixated upon her. The truth is here. This is your home. No escaping brings freedom. Cold dread washed over her, twisting her insides. What truth? What horror did this house conceal? Before she could form a response, the walls vibrated violently, a deafening roar erupting around them, drowning her in chaos. Run! Sarah screamed, urging her children to move. But as they turned to flee, the shadowy figure grinned, a smile too wide for his hollow face. You can't run from yourself. You've always been home. As they bolted down the hallway, the passage behind them began to flood with darkness, a river of shadow pulling at their heels. Would they escape its relentless grasp, or were they destined to suffer the same fate as the souls that whispered through the walls? With no time to think, they pushed forward, but the air thickened with dread. Their only option was the unknown that lay beyond. Then, a blinding flash of light shattered the darkness ahead. What did it reveal? Was it salvation or more horror waiting to ensnare them? The brilliance of the light grew more intense as they scrambled forward, bathing the passageway in a warmth that felt alien amid the biting chill. Sarah shielded her eyes, heart pounding, drowning in a maelstrom of emotions: fear, hope, and an almost desperate yearning to find something familiar in this hellish place. Where are we? Lily's voice trembled, and Sarah could feel her rigidity, a tightness born of unyielding dread. Just keep moving, Sarah urged, pushing through the magnetic pull of the darkness behind them. But as soon as they reached the threshold of the light, it fractured into a multitude of flickering flames. Each flame ignited haunting scenes, wretched memories rippling around them like waves of despair. Images of a family, faces contorted in anguish, played out before her. A woman weeping over crumpled photographs, a man screaming into the abyss, children running from shadows that clawed at their heels. It was all too vivid, too real. She recognized their despair, felt it deep in her bones. Mom, what is happening? Mark gasped, his breath hitching as raw terror twisted in his chest. I don't know, Sarah stuttered, but the truth burrowed under her skin, shattering an already fractured reality. This was their past, something she had left behind, secrets that twisted through her family like a venomous vine. The house wasn't just a shelter. It was a vessel of all things haunted and lost. As she stumbled backward, her thoughts spiraled. She felt as if she were being pulled through time, reliving moments she fought to forget. Suddenly, there was silence, a deceptive calm that stole the air from her lungs. The flames flickered, withering to a dim haze. Look, Lily's voice came as a hushed whisper, awe mixing with anxiety. Before them, a doorway emerged, shrouded in dim luminescence. An ornate frame, tall and foreboding, welcomed them, but the air around it buzzed with palpable tension. With each step closer, an overwhelming sense of dread thickened. Maybe it's a way out, Mark squeaked hopefully. Or it's a trap, Sarah muttered, internally battling her instincts. Mark squealed, gripping her arm tightly. What do we do? Just then, the whispering returned, rising to a fever pitch, swirling around them like a cyclone of despair. Return, 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 the words echoed, resonating through her mind, intoxicating her with dread. Don't listen, Sarah shouted, shaking her head violently. We have to trust ourselves. Together. As they reached the doorway, the whispers crescendoed into a shriek that rattled her bones. A figure loomed just inside, veiled in shadows, features obscured. Was it the man they'd seen earlier? The pulse of the house quickened, like a heart that wouldn't stop beating, and something inside Sarah stirred a fierce, unwilling acknowledgement of the truth. Suddenly, the walls around them groaned as if the house itself resisted their passage. Go, Sarah ordered, urging her children forward, pushing through the threshold while battling the nightmarish force trying to envelope her. Just as she stepped through, a frigid hand clamped around her ankle, dragging her back into darkness. Sarah screamed, the sound swallowed by the depths of the house as she was wrenched away from her children. No, Mark screamed, his voice cracking with terror. But Sarah felt herself begin to drift, floating in a void, time stretching and folding. An insidious voice echoed in her mind, soft and sinister. You cannot escape your past, your truth will bind you. Through the screams of her children reverberating from the doorway, Sarah was left with only one thought. What if the truth was more terrifying than the shadows themselves? As darkness closed in, an unfamiliar voice whispered too close. Are you ready to remember? In that single moment, dread crested anew, leaving Sarah breathless in despair as the pull toward oblivion tightened its grip. What horrors awaited her in the depths of the house? Would she be swallowed by the very secrets she sought to escape? The darkness enveloped Sarah, thick and suffocating. As the grip of the void tightened like a noose around her mind, flashes of memory exploded behind her eyes, cold and brutal. Feelings long buried rose to the surface: regret, fear, a deep-rooted pain that made her stomach churn. Sarah was yanked further into the shadow, the echoes of Mark's and Lily's screams twisting into tortured wails. She clawed at the air, fighting against the pull, but whatever held her was relentless. Darkness whispered promises of forgetting, of erasing everything that had led her here. No, she gasped, straining against the nothingness. I won't let you take me. As if in response to her defiance, the void momentarily relinquished its hold, and she was hurled forward. With a violent jolt, Sarah landed on a cold, hard floor, gasping for breath. The moment she opened her eyes, the world struck her like a punch. She lay in a room, dark but cluttered with familiar shapes, old furniture draped in sheets, toys strewn about, remnants of a life once lived. The house, their old house, and you thought you'd escape. A voice hissed, a low, guttural sound that gnawed at her sanity. The insidiousness slithered through the shadows, sneaking closer like a predator stalking a wounded prey. Sarah scrambled to her feet, adrenaline surging through her as instinct kicked in. She spun around, frantic, searching for her children. Panic clawed at her throat, but the silence that followed felt oppressive, almost alive. Mark, Lily, her voice echoed, swallowed by the consuming dark, a ghost of sound that vanished before reaching its destination. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Darkness shifted in the corner. She froze, heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. A figure, ethereal and frail, emerged from the shadows, a woman with hollow eyes and a face twisted in sorrow. Mom, she whispered, reaching out a bony hand. You must remember. What do you want from me? Sarah protested, her voice trembling. I've buried it all. I can't face it. Face it, or it will consume you, the specter warned, voice dripping with a sorrow that resonated deep within Sarah. The figure shifted, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of something, a memory, a shared sorrow. In those hollow eyes, Sarah glimpsed her own anguish reflected back at her. Suddenly, the walls groaned again, a deep, inhuman sound resonating with the weight of countless untold stories. The air grew thick like walking through fog, heavy with despair. "Remember," the woman's voice echoed, "or lose everything." A door creaked open behind Sarah, a grim invitation to step into the unknown. But she could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching, waiting. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears, an ominous reminder that not all memories are meant to be unearthed. "Mark, Lily," she screamed again, this time desperation clawing at her throat like barbed wire. The house responded with a low rumble, as if considering, reluctant to relinquish its grip. Then, from the doorway, shadows spilled forth like a tide, swirling and writhing, coalescing into forms that beckoned her. They danced, tantalizing images of her past, memories that made her heart ache with longing and dread alike. Sarah stepped back, heart racing. Did she dare? Would she learn the truth? Or would it shatter the fragile remnants of her identity? Would remembering their names mean revealing the darkness that bound them? The shadows surged closer, whispering her name, urging her to take the final step. "You have to choose now," the voice from the shadows wailed, the house vibrating with each word. "Face the truth or be lost forever." The pull towards the shadows tugged at her. What awaited her on the other side of remembering, and could she survive it? But as she teetered on the edge of that decision, a frantic voice broke through the chaos, a faint yet clear call. "Mom, help us!" As fear rushed in, a weight pushed down her chest. What would she uncover if she stepped through the doorway? Was her past worth the risk of losing her children forever? In that heart-stopping moment, a choice loomed, like a dark cloud gathering on the horizon. Would she embrace the shadows, or fight against them? Sarah's heart raced as she stood frozen, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The darkness seethed around her, a living thing, writhing and pulsing with a life of its own. The urgency in her children's cries wrapped around her like a chain, pulling her back from the precipice of indecision. "Mom!" The voice echoed again, more desperate this time. "Please, we're scared." She shivered, her skin prickling at the thought of them trapped somewhere in this nightmare. She had spent so long running from her past that now it was catching up to her, relentless and unforgiving. "Mark, Lily," she shouted, her voice trembling but fierce. "I'm coming." The shadows reacted, swirling faster as if feeding off her determination. Sarah took a step forward toward the door, the urge to save them nearly overwhelming. "The truth lies within," the ghostly figure murmured, her hollow eyes pleading. "You cannot outrun the past." "Shut up," Sarah yelled, the sound breaking free like a wild animal from its cage. The specter recoiled, dark mist coiling back as the walls groaned again, shaking with unseen rage. Gritting her teeth, Sarah pressed forward. The door loomed before her, darker than what was behind her. It felt like the mouth of a giant beast, waiting to swallow her whole. A gust of wind rushed through the open door, pulling her closer. Shadows reached for her with skeletal fingers, whispering promises of salvation while hiding the bitter truth. If she chose to enter, she might finally uncover what had happened to her family. But if she stepped through, could she handle what lay beyond? Would the truth shatter the last vestiges of her sanity? With one last look over her shoulder, she squared her shoulders and stepped through the threshold. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, a cacophony of haunting laughter echoed, and the place transformed. She found herself in an all-too-familiar hallway, drenched in gloom. The faded wallpaper peeled like dead skin. Memories hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The scent of dampness and dust filled her nostrils, and every sound seemed amplified her breathing. The creaking of the house, and the faint whisper of something lurking just out of sight. "Mark, Lily," she shouted again, her voice tinged with fear. It rang through the hall, bouncing off the walls before fading into silence that felt almost mocking. But then she heard it, a soft thump, a faint rustle, a childish giggle echoing in the distance. "Mommy!" The voice was undeniably Lily's, bright against the oppressive dark that surrounded her. It came from the end of the hallway, where shadows twisted, joining together like ink spilling across paper. Lily. Sarah sprinted down the hall, each step heavy with dread. As she ran, the walls warped, shifting like living creatures bent on crushing her spirit. The air thickened, and whispers, sharp and sinister, filled her ears. Turn back, they hissed. Forget. But the pleading in her daughter's voice propelled her forward. She burst through a doorway at the end of the hall, and the world shifted again, revealing a chilling nursery. It was time-worn yet unnaturally pristine. Toys that never gathered dust littering the floor alongside faded paintings of happy families. And there, nestled amongst the toys, sat a figure shrouded in darkness. Lily? Sarah reached out, but a cold laugh echoed back. Mama, the figure wavered, gradually revealing a face too familiar yet distorted by something grotesque. You came. The truth hung heavy in the air, pulsating like a heartbeat. And with it came an understanding that churned violently in Sarah's gut. In the grip of shock, she understood the stakes. This was it. She was standing on the edge of a cliff, and below was the vast abyss of truth and horror. What are you? Sarah breathed, fear gripping her like a vice. But the figure smiled, and as it did, shadowy tendrils slithered and curled around Sarah's feet, binding her to the ground. Everything you've forgotten, it whispered, voice dripping with malice. And everything you will lose as the shadows tighten their grasp. Fear ignited inside her, and she realized the choice wasn't just about facing the past anymore. It was about saving her children from the darkness that had always been a part of her, a darkness that was now clawing to be set free. Would she embrace the truth, or would she let it destroy everything she loved? In the suffocating dark, a choice unfolded before her, a mirror reflecting her deepest fears. As the shadows pulled tighter and the laughter grew louder, Sarah felt time freeze. Could she escape the past, or was she doomed to be consumed by it forever? The figure before her twisted, its smile widening unnaturally, revealing teeth that glimmered like shards of glass in the dim light. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as the shadows continued to coil around her, each movement like an icy snake constricting her breath. Panic rose up her throat, and she fought against the embrace of darkness, desperate to break free. What do you want from me? She shouted, her voice cracking. The figure leaned closer, its visage contorting, blending the faces of her children with a malevolence that made her skin crawl. To remember, Sarah. To remember everything. The shadows flickered violently. They seemed to mimic her fear, dancing about as if they were celebrating her despair. Images flooded her mind: family gatherings, birthday parties, laughter, the warmth that had once filled her life. And then, darkness, suffocating and choking. The car crash, screams. It all hit her like a tidal wave, crashing and tearing through the facade she had built to protect herself. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the memories. Stop, she cried. But the figure reached out, a long finger tracing the outline of her jaw, ice cold and insistent. You cannot escape. You're the one who chose to forget, it taunted. With a surge of fury, Sarah tore her gaze away, shifting her focus to the nursery around her. The walls seemed to pulsate, each thudding pulse a testament to the living nightmare she had stumbled into. She had always thought of this place as suffocatingly haunted by the past. Now it was revealed as a twisted prison of her own making. Mark. Lily. She screamed again, the pleas feeling hollow, falling against the oppressive silence that followed. But then, beyond the dark figure, faint echoes drifted through the room: laughter. Delicate, innocent, untouched by the gloom surrounding her. Mama, help us. It was her son now, pulled into the darkness just as she had been. The sound gnawed at her heart, igniting a cold fire within her veins. Let them go. They're not part of this, she shouted, turning back to the figure, desperation surging beneath her skin. But the figure only chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to come from the deepest pit of some unseen horror. They are tied to you, Sarah. Your fears, your choices. This is where they belong. No. She refused to accept that. Summoning every ounce of her strength, she ripped her feet free from the binding shadows. They howled in protest, pulling at her ankles, but she fought back, every heartbeat fueling her resolve. "Get away from me!" With a sudden burst of determination, she lunged toward the figure, hand outstretched. As she made contact, a flash of light erupted. The shadows screeched, a cacophony of agonized cries filling the air. In that blinding moment, time seemed to split, revealing glimpses of her children in pockets of light and laughter, suspended in the fabric of reality. But the figure's fingers coiled around her wrist, its grip tightening like a vice. "You can't escape the truth. It will find you, and it will consume you." Her pulse quickened as images of an alternate reality flickered before her, her children laughing, living. But shadows of regret loomed behind them, clawing to break free. "Do it! Save them!" A voice echoed deep within her. It was a voice she had buried long ago, the tether of her maternal instinct urging her forward. With a fierce cry, Sarah heaved with all her might, tearing herself away from the figure. She dashed toward the laughter, reaching out desperately, her fingers grasping at the invisible threads that bound her family to her. Then, everything slipped. The ground beneath her trembled, the nursery morphing into a whirlwind of shadows and light, as if the universe itself was collapsing. What awaited her on the other side? As she plunged into the light, what would it cost her? Would she gain her children or lose them forever? In that moment of disintegration, her breath caught in her throat as she felt the world shift, wrapping her tightly in an icy embrace. Time twisted and stretched, and the echo of her children's cries faded into the void. And then, silence. What had she truly unleashed? Sarah stood on the threshold of a new reality, but the question pressed against her mind. Was this the beginning of salvation or the moment she had condemned them all? The shadows whispered, curling at her feet, a reminder that her choice reverberated through the dark. And as she stepped forward, the chilling realization dawned. She wasn't merely reaching for her children. She was staring into the abyss that was her own shattered past. And it was staring back. The moment Sarah stepped into that glowing world, it was as if she breached the very fabric of reality, everything exploding into vivid colors and sensations. She breathed in deeply, the air fresh and fragrant, a stark contrast to the oppressive gloom that had bound her. But despite the newfound clarity around her, an all-consuming tension brewed in her chest, a silent reminder of what she might have lost in the turmoil. Mark's voice burst through the haze, sharp and filled with gratitude. She spun around to find her children standing there, their faces bathed in sunlight, eyes wide with relief and joy. Lily rushed into her arms, squeezing her tightly, while Mark hesitated, nerves still etched across his brow. But his eyes sparkled with something bolstered by the same light that enveloped them. I thought I lost you," Sarah exclaimed, fear melting into uncontainable relief. They were real, tangible, released from the shadows that had once haunted them. As her heart steadied, she noticed the surroundings: a park, vibrant and picturesque against a blue sky, alive with laughter and the flight of children playing. Memories of a happier time flooded her mind. This was the world they had almost lost. But in the back of her mind, something lingered. She felt it breathe down her neck, a ghost of her past that waited, lurking in the shadows that had fought so hard to claim them. "What just happened?" Mark asked, his brows knitted in confusion but his voice soft with a child's innocence. "That darkness, it was trying to control us," Sarah murmured, glancing at the space behind them, half expecting shadows to unfurl and reclaim their hold. "But you both gave me strength. We faced it together." Lily brightened, but then new doubt clouded her small features. What if it comes back? What if it finds us? A shadow flickered in Sarah's heart. She knelt, resting her hands on Lily's shoulders. "No, we're safe here. Darkness can't reach us if we remember love, if we remember each other. Our light, our family shines brighter than anything that threatens to keep us apart." Mark and Lily exchanged glances, their certainty growing, bolstered by her words. But Sarah felt restless, a heaviness looming over her heart. "We need to face it," she whispered, more to herself than her children. They had abandoned their home for a reason. It was tethered to pain. But that pain was their past, and accepting it was the only way to ensure their family remained whole. "We have to go back," Sarah said, her voice firm yet tender. "To reclaim our home, to break the cycle once and for all." "Are you sure, Mom?" Mark asked, his voice small but resolute. Fear lurked there, but it was overshadowed by trust in her decision. "Yes," she nodded, swallowing hard. "We have to show it we're not afraid of the truth any longer." With a leap of faith, they stepped back into that swirling light together, hand in hand, heart in heart. As they crossed the threshold once more, a familiar sensation washed over them, the chill of uncertainty mingled with warm strength. They were not alone in facing the darkness. Together, they were an unbreakable force. The room they entered was different now, transformed by their courage. The nursery walls shimmered faintly, shadows sidestepped as if acknowledging their strength, retreating back into the corners. And there, at the center, the figure still loomed, but it was smaller now, less foreboding, losing power by the second. "Welcome back," it whispered, voice low and barely recognizable. "We're here to reclaim our truth," Sarah declared, voice steady with resolve. "We see you, all of you. You won't control us any longer." As she spoke, the figure shrank, shadows recoiling like retreating tides. What had once been oppressive transformed now into a whisper of memories long forgotten, a lifetime of joy that had been overshadowed by grief. Mark and Lily stepped forward, their tiny hands clasping Sarah's. "We're not afraid," Mark declared, pride on his young face. Sarah could feel the power in those words, shaking the fetters that bound their past. Strands of forgotten memories unfurled around them like a delicate dance, revealing laughter, warmth, and love, the very essence of who they were. For every sigh of pain, a corresponding breath of joy washed over them. The figure wavered again, shadows fluttering like autumn leaves caught in a crisp wind, and finally, it began to dissolve into mist, its face twisting into something softer, more familiar, an echo of the family they once were. The house, no longer a prison, transformed into a sanctuary, light bursting through every crack as the warmth of hope expanded. Memories surrounded them like a protective embrace, their past no longer overshadowed by fear. With one last glance, Sarah's heart swelled. They had faced the darkness, and despite everything, they emerged intact. No more haunting whispers, no more fears. Their love had conquered as they stepped out of that room. Hand in hand, glimmers of light guided their path, revealing a future unmarked by the shadows of the past. They were alive, they were free, and they would make new memories. They would always remember together. This was at the dawn of their new beginning. You need to subscribe now to catch all future stories and moments like this. Smash that like button now to light up the algorithm. Flood the comments with your thoughts and reactions. What do you think about their journey? And don't wait even one more second to share this with 5 friends who need warmth for their own dark moments. Let's spread the light together.